Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another Star Wars Battlefront 2 ranking video. And today we will be ranking all the heroes and villains from the worst to the best. Now just a few guidelines before we get started. This is just my opinion, and my opinions are very controversial, so it will definitely not match up with yours. Don't unsubscribe just because your favorite hero or villain is low on this list, because it's not anything personal. It's just how I see the heroes and villains and how I would rank them. The biggest deciding factor for this list was how versatile each hero is. At the bottom of this list, you'll see heroes that are only good in certain situations, but overall aren't very useful. At the top of this list, you'll see heroes that are good, great, or amazing in every single situation. Each hero is at least usable and can be good in some situations, and in my opinion, no hero is bad, just some are better than others. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, but I don't want to waste any more time, so let's get right into the rankings. Coming in at the number 22 position is Chewbacca. Now the reason why Chewie ranks so low is that really right now, there were no other sane choices for dead last. Don't get me wrong, Chewie can be so strong in certain situations, but isn't that true with all heroes? All heroes can be strong in some situations, but Chewie is so good in so many less situations than any of the other heroes, and versatility is the most important factor when putting this list together. And Chewie has always struggled in trooper-based game modes, but has been so strong in hero-only modes because he is so good in 1v1s. Chewie's problem is that he just can't take down multiple enemies at once, which is really important. His slam ability is the only well-suited ability for GA, but it is still very situational. His shock ability is good for saving your life and stopping lightsaber heroes from wrecking your day, but its shock time is just too small for it to mean anything. As always, his Furious Bowcaster is brilliant, but it just doesn't last long enough and just isn't useful enough in GA to be considered an amazing ability. Also, the situations where Chewie is good, there are so many other heroes that can do everything Chewie can do, just a lot better, and they can do it more easily. Sure, he's good in 1v1s, but that won't take you very far in Star Wars Battlefront 2, and explains his low ranking today. Rolling through at the number 21 spot is BB9E. Now, I know a lot of you guys think that he should be at dead last, but due to how much he can shock you, that's out of the question. Now, BB9E can be an amazing asset to your team if the team is willing to stick with BB9E. Based on how teams are these days, that rarely happens. Also, BB9E is only good in certain situations against very particular types of teams, ones that just don't come very often in this game. He's just too much of a support character and of a defensive hero to do anything. Sure, he's hard to catch, especially with his shock prod, his shock spin, his fast movement speed, small size, and smokescreen ability, but running just doesn't take you very far in this game. His smokescreen ability is situationally useful, especially for running away, but it doesn't do any damage to your opponents. His shock spin would be so much better if it simply shocked you and dealt damage, but it brings you flying away so that your enemies can shoot you again once they recover. It's only useful if they're against the wall, or if you can fling them off into a pit. His charge of ability is very good for being a support character, due to how much it can help your shock prod and enemy blasters overheat. But that's only situationally useful, it just doesn't cut it on this list. BB9E is okay in GA if you have the right teammates, and almost awful in HPV, just because his health is too low and he doesn't deal enough damage to be well suited for that game mode. Sadly, BB9E just isn't versatile enough to rank any higher, and that is a large deciding factor for this list. Shooting in at the number 20 spot is Captain Phasma. Now, I know there are a lot of Captain Phasmas out there, and I know quite a few myself, that think that Captain Phasma should be in the top 10, or at least a bit higher than this rating, and I get it. She's a lot of fun to play as. Her gun can be so satisfying, she is survivable with her droid and her health buff, and her stash strikes can be so fun to use against lightsaber heroes. Sadly, she just isn't good in enough situations to rank any higher. Her droid is her best asset by far, but it is only useful if your team camps around it, or if the enemy team runs straight at you, which doesn't happen very often, as people nowadays just know not to run straight at Phasma's droid. Her staff strikes are the most situationally useful ability in the game, and you shouldn't even get close and personal if you are a blaster hero for that matter. Her health buff is really useful for surviving, as it has Survivor in its name, and there's really nothing else to say about that. But Phasma's problem is that she is just too situationally useful to rank any higher. In HPV, she can be unstoppable if your team camps around her doorway, which almost never happens. And when that does happen, you could just be playing with another hero and do a lot better than Phasma. In GA, Phasma can be great for locking down objectives and sniping, but those situations are just not very common, and she is too unversatile to rank any higher. Really think about it. When have you felt hopeless against a Phasma in GA? For me, it's never. Phasma, sure, she's good, but she's too unversatile to rank any higher. Jumping through at the number 19 spot is Bossk. Now, don't get me wrong, Bossk can be so good on certain maps, and if you place everything correctly, Bossk can just be so annoying to counter, it's almost ridiculous. Where he struggles is that if he comes up against a lightsaber hero, there's almost nothing he can do. I usually see Bossk try to run, while I slash them with my lightsaber to death, because if Bossk doesn't have his abilities recharged, the only thing he can do is run against a saber hero. His predatory instincts ability is great up close and at a far range if you can land your bombs, but it is unreliable and glitchy at times. His proximity mines, if placed correctly, can be a really hard thing to deal with, and his Dioxis can rack up kills really fast. But notice how I'm saying if, can, and unreliable. Those three words just don't take you very far in this game. In situations that do suit Bossk, he can rack up kills. But if a Bossk is getting annoying, I just hop in and play Rey, Luke, or Anakin, and the Bossk is dead before he realizes who he was up against. Bossk is so easily countered, it's almost funny. It's nice that he doesn't ever lose max health, but he doesn't have a health on kill, so he can't get health back instantly after a kill, which hinders his survivability quite a bit. And as a saber hero, or even certain blaster heroes, taking down 600 health is really easy, especially against Bossk because his health regen speed is so slow. It's ridiculous. Sure, his Relby is good, but it's just not reliable with the hit markers and doesn't have a normal headshot up close. In GA, Bossk is great at sitting back and sniping, but sitting back and sniping won't take you very far, and that is only available in certain phases of certain maps. In HV, he is fine, but only if your team is willing to support you, which almost never happens in this game. Bossk is good, don't get me wrong, but he's too situational to rank any higher. Dodging in at the number 18 spot is the one and only Lando Calrissian. Now, I get it. Lando's a fun hero to play. One of my best streaks of all time was with Lando Calrissian. His problem is, he is only good in very particular situations. On maps where Sharp Shot can be used effectively, is amazing for Lando, and you will rack up kills in no time. Some examples of those situations are the first phase of Hoth, the second phase of Jakku, the second phase of Kashyyyk, and the second and third phases of Geonosis. As you can see, those are very particular situations, and if Lando is caught in any situations besides those, he has a blaster that has the longest time to kill in the game for a hero blaster, a disabler that has a ridiculously bad activation time, and a useless smoke bomb. Lando is just too situational to rank any higher. His smoke bomb is situationally useful, but now, with all the lightsaber heroes, it does next to nothing. His disabler takes a long time to activate, and once it does, you are usually dead. His sharp shot is good as always, but it is only useful on particular maps, as I said before. Once the role was nerfed, and saber heroes just got a lot better, Lando was just never the same. In GA, Lando can be amazing if put in the right phase, but that rarely happens, especially with the map rotation system and how dead servers are these days. He can be good in HEV if you have a team that supports you and you play him correctly, but isn't that true with every unit? If you play any unit correctly, you can do well as them, but when it comes down to it all, Lando just isn't consistent enough in this game to rank any higher on this list. Sliding in at the number 17 spot is Leia. Now, I know quite a few Leia mains are going to roast me in the comments for this, and I get it. Leia is so fun to play as, it's almost ridiculous. Her E11 is so satisfying, her blaster is so fun up close and at ranges, her thermal detonators can be so fun to use, and her squad shield is amazingly useful for regaining health. The problem is, well, this game is just becoming one for saber heroes. If Leia comes up against Dooku, Maul, Vader, Grievous, and basically any saber hero on the dark side, she is dead before she knows who she was up against. The nerf to the role a long time ago really hindered her, If Leia is getting annoying, I usually hop on as Kylo, Dooku, or Grievous, and the Leia is dead before she can look up. She can be really useful on maps like Crate and Geonosis, but those are very particular situations. She is just too situational to rank any higher, and that's the problem with the heroes dwelling near the bottom of this list. Her blaster is one of the best in the game and very versatile. Her thermal detonators can be really good, but they've never been too effective because they're easily avoided by any class. Only really in choke points like the second phase of Naboo does she stand a chance with her detonators. Her E11 just shreds, and there's nothing else to say about that. Her squad shield can be overpowered for regaining health, but it takes too long and isn't useful against a lightsaber hero. In fact, it's usually a detriment because Leia can't shoot the saber hero before they've closed in on her. In GA, Leia can be so good, but she still isn't the greatest, especially on certain phases of certain maps. In HPV, she is very situational. She can be good with the right team, but based on how teams are these days, the team that Leia needs almost never comes, and as you can probably see, she is noticeably better than the last few heroes that came behind her on this list, but she just doesn't cut it compared to the next 16. Firing through at the number 16 position is Iden Versio. Now, Iden is one of my favorite heroes to play right now, and I get why she makes people's top 10s. Her TL50 is amazing, especially with the secondary fire, which is so useful due to the fact that it cannot be blocked. Her shot can be so annoying to deal with, and her pulse cannon, if used correctly, can be a really good and satisfying weapon. Her shield can also save your life many times, which makes her more survivable of a hero. Iden's problem is that if she comes up against a lightsaber hero without any teammates, she's dead. If she's not supported by a team, she's a very easy kill. I can't tell you how many times I died as Iden because my team just wasn't there for me. If you get put in a game where your team supports you, Iden is so amazing, it's ridiculous. In GA, if she's on maps like Naboo and Camino, Iden is ridiculously good. And HPV Iden is great, especially with her secondary fire, because most lightsaber heroes these days block whenever they take damage, so her secondary fire can be ridiculously good in that game mode. Her shock ability is really useful, but its activation time could be better, and how slow it takes has killed me on occasion. Her shield has saved my life, but it doesn't block against lightsaber strikes, and once you attack, it goes away, making it kind of last second. Her pulse cannon can be really annoying, but if you want to snipe, Bossk is just better at that. Don't get me wrong, Iden can be really good, but there are situations where she is really bad, which I think justifies her somewhat average spot on today's list. She needs an amazing team, which is a team that just doesn't come that often in this game. If there's any controversy in the Battlefront 2 community besides loot boxes that keeps going on, it's where to rank Boba Fett. It seems as if he's either ranked a top tier hero or a bottom tier hero, and for that reason I put him right in the middle. Boba Fett, don't get me wrong, can be an insane hero and one of the best in the hands of the right player, and the mains make Boba Fett look like a monster, but when you go to the statistics alone, he isn't really a monster. His health is pretty awful, but when you combine him with his jetpack, it does make up for it. His EE3, even with the dot reticle, it's still really hard to aim with, but if you can land your shots, which is a big if, it can do well, but its time to kill suffers greatly. His For the Hunt ability is really useful because not only does it scan for nearby enemies, but it gives his jetpack unlimited fuel, which is insane. His concussion rocket, as always, isn't great, but it is still a somewhat useful ability now that it disables blasters, which can really help. His rocket barrage, as usual, is one of the best in the game still, and can melt heroes, enforcers, and infantry, but it is not as good as it once was by any means. As you can probably notice, his statistics are good, but not insane by any means, which reflects his somewhat average spot on today's list. In HPV, Boba Fett can be amazing due to the fact that the enemy team cannot touch Boba, and his rocket barrage is amazing against all types of heroes. In GA, Boba Fett is situationally useful due to the fact that on wide open maps like Kashyyyk, Hoth, and Tatooine, you can use his jetpack to its full advantage. On close quarters maps like the SR2, he is complete garbage, and you would be better off using infantry. Boba Fett can be really good, but there is a learning curve to him, and the average player can do somewhat well with Boba Fett, and it takes a very particular type of playstyle to go on a huge kill streak with Boba, which explains his somewhat average spot on today's list. Blocking through at the number 14 spot is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is by far one of the most loved characters in all of Star Wars, but has always seemed to fall near the middle of the list in Star Wars Battlefront 2 heroes, and near the bottom in terms of lightsaber heroes. Don't get me wrong, Obi-Wan can be amazing. He is one of the most survivable heroes in the game. Whenever I play him, I always forget that I can take hundreds of damage points and still heal back to max health, which is not the case for most heroes. His blocking stamina paired up with the right star cards can be the best in the game, and although it's annoying to deal with, it fits well with Obi-Wan so well and is amazing to use. Obi-Wan's problem is that his abilities just don't add up to the rest of the heroes on this list. His all-out push ability is really good for clearing out hallways and for catching people off guard, but the time it takes to charge up the push just doesn't make up for it. Luke's push, although it can get to the distances all-out push can, it is instant and can be activated while jumping, which is so useful. His mind trick is almost useless at this point, and now that you can still dash and roll while it's activated, and canceling your abilities is only mildly annoying and is only deadly if you're in a choke point and you're about to activate an ability that was going to get you a ton of kills. But on the dark side, that is just not as common. His defensive rush is really awesome now, especially now where you can move around with it freely while it is activated. So he has that going for him. But as you probably noticed, Obi-Wan just seems a bit better than average, which is where I would put him. Even his base stats are average. His health is at 750, which is average for a saber hero. His movement speed is somewhat slower than most, and his lightsaber damage is slightly higher than most, which evens him out. In hero game modes, he is definitely not very good. He can block all day for sure, but his abilities just aren't suited for hero combat. His push is only good for ledges, but it gives too much of a warning to mean anything. His mind trick just tickles the heroes, and his defensive rush just walks him into traps all the time. In trooper game modes, he's actually pretty decent. His blocking stamina is perfect for most troopers who desperately try to shoot him down, and his all-out pushes is amazing for hallway control, and his mind trick, well, is not very good. But it being completely useless is fine. For all he needs is good blocking stamina, the all-out push, and the defensive rush. Don't get me wrong, the right Obi-Wan is amazing, but he takes too much skill and is too average to rank any higher on this list. At launch, and about 6 months through launch as well, Rey was considered one of the best heroes in the game, and was also considered the best for a long time as well. But that was a long time ago. That was before all the dark side heroes were buffed countless times. That was before Anakin was introduced into the game. That was before heroes like Dooku, Grievous, and BB-8 were in the game. That was before heroes like Yoda and Finn became awesome heroes to play. Through all those times, Rey was left completely alone, with basically no buffs, nerfs, or changes in general. The only thing that has changed about Rey has been the new skins. When you leave a hero alone like that, they will by default become a worse choice over time, and that's exactly what happened to Rey. Right now, she is still good, and is one of my favorite heroes on certain maps, but she feels mediocre. I can't say that she is better than Kylo Ren. I can't say that she is better than Vader. I can't say that she is better than Yoda. I can't even say that she is better than Maul. She just feels plain average. Her health is average for a light superhero at 750. Her damage output and speed are slightly higher than most light superheroes, which is of course a bonus, but it doesn't really make a difference in trooper game modes. In trooper game modes, she is really good, as her dash strike can clear crowds of enemies perfectly, and with damaging strikes fully upgraded, it is amazing. Her insight is amazing for her and for team support, and her mind trick can mess up enemy heroes in the worst possible situations for them. Where she struggles is heroes versus villains. In that game mode, mind trick, although useful, is pretty easy to counter. Her dash strike only does so much, and her insight ability is next to useless. You have to rely on strategy and skill, which the average player lacks. Abilities are what makes a hero, in my opinion. If you have bad abilities, you have a bad hero, and Rey's abilities overall are just slightly above average. Her mind trick is okay, and would be a great ability, but now that everyone knows how to counter it, it is only situationally useful. Her insight ability is absolutely amazing for hallways, and for the average player, knowing who's in what room is useful when you're trying to decide when to enter a place or not. Her dash strike is just good. It can get awesome multi-kills, but it doesn't have the same potential that abilities like Heroic Might, Repulse, and Force Choke do. Don't get me wrong, on some days Rey is amazing, it's just that there are so many other heroes that are great, and Rey's stats alone aren't good enough to push her much higher on this list. It's a tough one. Lately, in the community, Finn has been getting more attention now than ever. There's been a lot of new appreciation for Finn, as people have been realizing just how good Deadeye is in certain situations, and as more people try him out, more people love him. In my opinion, that is mostly due to co-op, as with the 3 Deadeye cards loaded, spamming Deadeye is so easy, and the AI are just so dumb with that ability, they can't do anything about it. I've gone on 100 plus streaks with Finn in co-op, as it's just so easy to do with Deadeye, but co-op is co-op, and doesn't really make much of a dent on this list. Don't get me wrong, online games as Finn can go really well. In HPV, he can be absolutely amazing if he uses EL16 and his Clee 44 correctly, and also utilize the role well. In GA, his Deadeye on certain maps like Endor, Naboo, and Starkiller Base is absolutely awesome, and his Big Deal ability is amazing for buffing your team's health, and on the third phase of Naboo, the first and fourth phases of Kamino, and the final phase of Starkiller Base. As you can see, Finn is more situational than most heroes, but in the situations where he does excel, he really dominates his opponents, and he is the best choice for those phases. His health is pretty low for a blaster hero, and is the lowest in the game besides Bossk, but Bossk can always regenerate back to full health, while Finn cannot. Finn's ability rotation is pretty good. I mean, his Big Deal is really amazing if you use it on certain phases of certain maps. His Deadeye is one of the best abilities in the game, and that goes without saying. His undercover team ability is really good for moving faster, and combined with the Big Deal makes Finn the ultimate support character. Also, landing headshots with the Clee 44 on heroes is absolutely devastating for the opponents. As you can probably see, Finn has a pretty decent setup. It's just that he's too situational to be higher on this list. He's less situational than heroes like Phasma and Lando Calrissian, sure, but looking at the rest of this list, putting him higher would just feel wrong, and it feels as if I'm cheating the other heroes. Finn, he's great, and he's as good now as he ever will be or ever could be, and that puts him at number 12. Yoda. When I first started playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, Yoda was my favorite hero to play as, hands down, but that faded away quickly, and for a while after that, it was just kind of yesterday's news for me. Once the Scarif update rolled around though, I got new appreciation for him and started going some huge streaks as him. After a week or so though, my liking of him just died down again. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because Yoda is very particular and very situational. He is a support character for your team, and although with his ability combination you can go on some big streaks, he just has too many faults to rank any higher. Don't get me wrong, Yoda can be absolutely amazing. His small hitbox is so useful, but people lately have been learning how to counter it very well. His lightsaber strikes, although weak combined with his dash, can be absolutely amazing. His presence ability is great for saving your life, and for the survivability, as he can take damage, but still have max health, which is really awesome. His Unleash is where he starts to get really good though, and is the reason why he ranks in the top 10. If you hold out his Unleash for long enough, it can kill all infantry classes, which is amazing for clearing out hallways and for life-saving situations. The Ragdoll effect is amazing combined with Lightside's insane Ragdoll options, and the fact that it can push you off the edges is so good for HPV. Overall, the Unleash for me, at least, makes Yoda. His health is insanely average at 700 for a lightsaber hero. His damage is actually slightly lower than most, but he makes up for it, and his speed is completely average. But with a small hitbox and the Unleash ability, he is just unrivaled compared to the rest of the heroes behind him. Also, his block is one of the best in the game as it has the widest area, it supports his Unleash ability, and it protects him against explosive damage. It is amazing. In HPV, he is really good for maps with ledges, but besides that, he doesn't really make much of an effect in that game mode. In Trooper game modes, he is really good, as the small size makes him able to sneak around on particular maps and go under the radar, and with his presence ability, the team support potential is unrivaled most of the time. As you probably noticed, Yoda is good. He is situational, and a lot about him is average, but in the areas where he does exceed, he does really well, so it brings him up to the exact middle spot on this list. BB-8 was one of the most surprisingly good heroes from Star Wars Battlefront 2 at his release. His Cable Spin was one of the best abilities in the game, his resistance backing ability is quite insane, and his Rolling Charge was so fun to use and he made most people's top 15s. But with the final update, a new mechanic was introduced. With all abilities such as Dash, Claw Rush, Defensive Rush, and Rolling Charge, you can now manipulate the movement instead of it being a straightforward hit or miss. This made BB-8 a lot better because although his Rolling Charge was good before, it was now amazing, which added more to his wonderful kit. BB-8 is able to be a support character while still being good offensively, which is a combination not many heroes have. And HCV, if you use him correctly and Palpatine is not in your match, then you will dominate as his Cable Spin, fast movement, and small hitbox really helps him out. In Trooper-based game modes, he is also amazing on maps where there are a lot of choke points, and it's all about the Cable Spin. Once you perfect that ability and add the necessary star cards to it, BB-8 is just amazing. His health is really low, and that does bring him down a bit, but his small size and fast movement does somewhat make up for it. His shock prod isn't really that good, but as BB-8 you just need to wait for your Cable Spin to recharge, and then you're good. His resistance backing ability is amazing for team support, his Cable Spin is just amazing, and can take out heroes so fast before they know it. And finally, his Rolling Charge is a blast to use, and is now a really good ability since the final update. As you can see, BB-8 has a really good roster with a few weaknesses, The only reason why he's not in our top 5 is because the heroes coming up are definitely better. There's not much question about that. Most of the heroes that are coming up on this list could take BB-8 out, and although he is really an amazing hero with a really solid roster all around, he just can't get a higher spot on this list. Darth Maul. I know a lot of people would rank Darth Maul lower on this list, but for me, he is a really good hero with a few faults, but no huge ones. His biggest problem is his health pool. It really isn't that good of a health pool for a Saber hero. His damage is at 700, which is the definition of average for Star Wars Battlefront 2 health. His damage output is also fairly average, but where he really shines is speed. He can zip through a map amazingly fast and get away from situations and into situations faster than any hero except Boba Fett. He can knock people away with his force choke, spraying through a map with his spin attacks, and mess people up with saber throw any day of the week. I do understand that his throw and his choke both don't deal that much damage at all, but they both fit well together so well with his playstyle, and as Maul, you just need to spin attack into a room before anybody notices, choke a crowd of enemies, throw your saber throw and kill 1 or 2 of them, and then mess the rest of the people up with your spin attack again. It does take practice and skill, but once mastered, it is so satisfying and it almost feels easy over time. Maul can get in and out of situations basically better than anyone in the game. In HEV, Maul can be really good if you use him correctly, but where he shines is in GA and Supremacy, especially Supremacy. In Supremacy, the maps fit so well together for him. He can zip across any map and get a ton of kills, especially since Supremacy is so outdoor. It fits his playstyle really well, and the picking off AI just feels cheap, and it kind of is. Back when I streamed on Xbox, I was getting 40 and 50 plus streaks in almost every game it felt, and it was just so easy. His saber throw, although weaker than Vader's, does its job fine. His choke, although situational, can save his life so many times. And his spin attack is really where he gets good though. It makes him able to get in and out of rooms incredibly easy, and also does a decent amount of damage. Pair that with flow motion, and you have yourself a monster. As you can see, a Maul played correctly is insane, and used my tips, and even the average player can dominate his Maul. What pulls him down though is that he just doesn't have the best damage output, and he is buggy at the moment, so that brings him down. But besides that, Maul's a solid choice in Star Wars Battlefront 2, and one that you should consider using more often. Slicing through at the number 8 spot is Count Dooku. When Dooku first came into Star Wars Battlefront 2, he was amazing. Nobody knew how to counter him yet. His duels was amazing. His exposed weakness, although flawed, was still great, and his lightning was just incredible. Over time, though, people learned how to counter him. People learned to spam block until he was out of stamina and try not to outdamage him. People learned that if you just blocked the lightning, it was useless. And people also learned that exposed weaknesses activation time was just laughable. Due to that, he slipped down the rankings a bit, but he's still a good hero. His problem seems to be is that he just can't do anything good unless he's up close, but that's how most lightsaber heroes are. Just Dooku has it a little worse since he has no crowd killing abilities, but he is still really amazing. In HV, he is really good, especially against new players, as they will try to outdamage you while you shock them with your damage output. In trooper-based game modes, he is situational, but on the right map and in the right hands, he can be just about the best hero for those phases. Where he shines, though, is a mode that I haven't talked about at all today, and it's Hero Showdown. In a 1v1, you might as well turn off your controller and take your game disc out because it will end the same way no matter what you do. You will lose. His lightning stun is so good against infantry and also against heroes due to the ragdolling effect. His duels is amazing, especially against unsuspecting heroes and for cloud control. His exposed weakness is a weak ability, sure, but just ignore it, as all you need is duelist and lightning stun and you got a good hero. His health is average at 750, but still good. His damage output is above average, and his swing speed is so good it's insane. Finally, his movement speed, although average, is not bad at all and is really nice. And as you can see, Dooku has really good stats, and paired with the right match can make for some really awesome games as him. Just looking at the rest of this list, he can't get a higher spot than the rest of the heroes due to one of his abilities being near useless, but the rest of his stats bringing up to the number 8 spot. Charging through at the number 7 position is Han Solo. Han is definitely the best blaster hero in the game, and it's not really close at all. His DL-44 is really amazing, his shoulder charge, although buggy at times, is really useful, his detonite charge is too insane, and his sharpshooter is the only part of his kit that really isn't as good as it used to be, and an ability that I wouldn't recommend you use. But that's fine, because leave me with the DL-44 and his detonite charge, and that's all Han needs to excel in Battlefront 2. In HV, he is a beast, and with the right team support, getting first with him is basically easier than ever before. In trooper-based game modes, he is amazing. He is consistent and is good on basically every single map. With the good heroes, there's just not that much to say, is they're just good. His health is at 650, which although average suits him well, his speed is slow, but good for a gun hero at least. His damage output is so high, it's kind of ridiculous. I think you get the picture. Han is amazing. His detonite charge can clear rooms in an instant. His shoulder charge is as good as always, and his sharpshooter actually isn't very good, but that's fine. As long as he has a DL44, it makes up for all of that. His stats are good, and with practice, he's amazing, and there's not much to say about that. He only doesn't make the top 5 because being a blaster hero really has its downsides, and he can be fragile at times, but it's definitely not as bad as it was at launch. The most famous hero in Star Wars Battlefront 2 is by far Anakin Skywalker. It is just too much of a story to ignore. At release, I and the rest of the community was shocked at how good Anakin was. His ability loop was the best in the game by far. He can knock you down with all 3 of his abilities, all 3 of which drained half your health in an instant if you weren't careful. His retribution was the best in the game, and his lightsaber strikes and speed were unmatched by anyone. He was fast, and then there was just nothing else to it. In every game mode, he was the best choice, and how DICE released him that way, I just don't know, but he got nerfed so many times, and now he has so many bugs, that he has to take our number 6 spot on today's list. Nowadays, in HV, he is a solid pick, but people just know how to counter him well. If you block all of his abilities, the only way he can damage you is through the Passionate Strike, which is a really good ability. His swing speed and damage output is still amazing. His health is basically unrivaled besides Vader at 800, and overall he is really solid. With the right star cards, all of his abilities are all one-hit kills, and so are his lightsaber strikes. In trooper-based game modes, he is one of the easiest picks and is also very solid. His heroic might is amazing for crowd control, his pole dominance is so annoying to counter, and is so satisfying in hallways. His passionate strike is great if you want to break through what people think is that trusty block, but then it's not a trusty block. And his retribution, although it takes a long time to charge, can save your life in so many situations. It's kind of ridiculous. As you can see, he is one of the easiest rosters to get the hang of. It's just that some of his bugs are really bad and can make playing as him hard to do, at least lately. Sometimes they will come at the worst possible times, but overall he is a really solid pick, and you should definitely try him out. When you want a safe, good, solid game, choose Anakin Skywalker, and there's nothing else to say about that. Just barely making it into the top 5 is Emperor Palpatine. I would love to rank Emperor first, as he is always going to be my favorite hero at the end of the day, and takes a special place in my heart for Star Wars Battlefront 2, but I cannot do it. In co-op, Palpatine is the most OP hero, as if you time his chain lightning just right, the AI barely stand a chance. But this list is really not about co-op, it's about online modes and how good these heroes are overall. In HEV, Emperor Palpatine is amazing in the right hands, but it has to be in the right hands. If you utilize his dash correctly, then he is amazing. But you have to be zipping around, activating Dark Aura, jumping, using his second lightning, and timing his electrocute and chain lightning. As you can tell, that takes a lot of skill and thinking, but once you pick up the skills, you will dominate and get first nearly every time. It will be ridiculous. In trooper-based game modes, he is basically a beast and can do amazing on every map as long as you stay moving. You need to utilize his speed to its full potential. If you don't, then you're cheating yourself. His health is completely average at 700. His movement speed, although it may seem slow, combine it with his dash and you have one of the fastest heroes in the game. His damage output is slow and steady, but timed correctly can be a really annoying thing to deal with. His Dark Aura is amazing as always, and although the slowdown effect is gone, it is still really solid. His electrocute is very situational and not the best ability, but that is fine because Chain Lightning gets him so many cheap multi kills and really completes his kit. All he needs is fast movement, his lightning, and his chain lightning, and it will bring him into the top 5. It takes some time to get used to him, but once you do, you'll be wrecking havoc on the battlefront. With Luke, it has really been a story, sort of like Anakin Skywalker. At launch, all of his abilities did next to no damage. His speed, although good, was not as good as it is now, and his lightsaber damage and health were just as pitiful as the rest of the Saber heroes. Over time, though, DICE buffed him again and again, to the point where Luke has now been considered one of the most solid picks in Star Wars Battlefront 2. In HEV, he is one of the best, and it's just so easy to get the hang of. In Trooper game modes, it's almost unmatched, as his 3 abilities complement each other so well. His health is average, but not bad at 750. His speed is perfect, his lightsaber deals great damage, and his swing speed is a little bit overpowered. He's just a perfect hero, no faults and nothing bad. He is just great. His repulse is amazing for crowd control. His force push is amazing and can even be activated while jumping. And his dash ability is so great for running away quickly and for finishing off enemies quickly. As you can tell, he is a solid pick. No faults, nothing bad, easy to get the hang of, and that's all there is to it. Just pulling in at the number 3 spot is Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is too good. His movement speed is great, his health is average but not bad at 750, his damage output is unrivaled, and his ability combinations is one of the best in the game, no doubt about it. He's equally good in HPV and in GA, as he is just so well suited for both game modes. His freeze ability is amazing for catching enemies off guard and messing heroes up. His force pull leaves enemies so exposed and is great for ruining heroes that are trying to get away at low health. His Frenzy is one of the best abilities in the game for crowd control, and although it is a little risky, it is still amazing nonetheless. Kylo Ren is just easy to get the hang of and is really consistent and versatile, and is never a bad choice, and is always a great one. Kylo is one of my favorites, is very popular, and is a hero that you should pick if you want to get a high streak with little skill involved. This is a controversial one. Grievous is coming in at number 2, and I know it's going to upset some people, as a lot of people think he is the best hero in the game, but let me explain. Grievous's health is at 800, which is really good even for a saber hero. His damage output is the most insane in the game for sure, and is easy to use. At HV, he would rank number 1 for me by a mile because of the Claw Rush. There's nothing else to say about that. Claw Rush just does the job. In Trooper-based game modes, I would rank Grievous number 3 for me, as his incredibly low blocking stamina is a huge problem for those game modes. It's like he doesn't even have a block. I would recommend blocking with his unrelenting advance ability instead, even though it is a little buggy right now. His Claw Rush is low-key the best ability in the game, and it's not even a question. Now that you can spin around with it, it is the best ability for taking out any kind of enemy. It is kind of buggy when it comes to blocking the rush, but it actually helps him overall. His thrust search ability is not buggy anymore and works perfectly, and is really awesome. It's an easy ability to get the hang of, and it's just an easy kill. His unrelenting advance is useful in certain situations and can land some amazing multi-kills, but overall it's just not a reliable ability. But as most heroes, that's fine. All he needs is his Claw Rush, his high damage output, and it puts him at the number 2 position. And I think that I can say that by doing justice to the other heroes. His Thrust Search is good, but it really comes down to that Claw Rush. And taking the top spot is Darth Vader, and I know that this will anger some people, as a lot of people think that he's number 2 now, but I beg to differ. Grievous, although being really offensive, is not a tank like Vader. Vader has a health buff and an extra health star card. That's a little too hard to beat in my opinion. Vader has strong attack damage, especially with Focus Rage. He has very solid stamina and has insane health. He can get to 1,150 health at maximum, which is just too insane. He does have slow movement speed, but Battlefront 2 has evolved, and that really doesn't change much, especially if you're a tank like Vader. In HV, I would rank him number 2 behind Grievous because he can just melt here with Force Chokes and Focus Rage combined. In GA and Supremacy, I would rank him number 1, as almost every map now suits him so well, and he can take you out at range and also up close. He can take on other heroes so well in GA, and there's rarely a situation where he is in trouble. His Focus Rage is amazing, and it makes him a complete beast. It not only improves him health, but it gives him extra damage reduction, and extra stamina. That's amazing. His Saber Throw, even with the nerf, is still a great ability, and his Force Choke is too good to even talk about. He is the only hero on this list with 3 amazing abilities, and in my opinion, if you really think about it, he is better than Grievous and for sure should take the number 1 spot, and does. Well, everyone, there you have it. Every single hero in Star Wars Battlefront 2 ranked from the worst to the best. I promised I would make this video a long time ago, but it took a long time to make, and I kind of slacked off, but it is finally here. I hope that it was worth the wait, and that you did enjoy it. Leave a like on this video if you want me to do a final ranking of all the skins in Star Wars Battlefront 2, as it has been a common thing on the channel. Anyways, leave a like, subscribe, and this is Radio King signing off. I will see you all on the next one. Bye, guys.